I was on the phone. I wasn't on the phone. Jack was on the phone, CEO. He called me up to his office. He goes, I'm going to call Ono. Jack, as you kind of get, is Australian. And Ono was the chairman of Bridgestone Firestone US, obviously Japanese. And we'd been discussing, we're going to recall the tires in Venezuela. We've got to do that. And this was before the US recall. We had Ono on the phone, and Ono's voice was trembling. And you could tell he was speaking from prepared remarks. And he basically said, we cannot recall these tires. And Jack says, well, we're going to recall them with or without you, and hung up on him. And so we went and recalled tires in Venezuela. And of course, NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Administration, when we did that, they go, ooh, this is bigger than we thought. See, what was happening in Saudi Arabia was the guys that had Explorers were they'd go on the highway, then they wanted to go across the desert, so they get out of their car and they reduce the pressure in their tires to get more grip on the sand. But then when they get back on the highway, they wouldn't put the pressure back up. Well, low tire pressure, heat, creates the enemy of a tire. And so that's where we were seeing it first. So this was a global thing. It was we sell Explorers in Europe, we sell Explorers in Asia. So it really was, and that's why we communicated with everybody, openly and honestly. We had one incident where it was early in the crisis, and our head of supply, and she was like second in command, she goes, I was at a soccer game for my kid, and this woman comes up to me, she knows I work at Ford, and said, she has an Explorer, and she wants to know if these tires are good or bad. So I walked over to her car, and I said, no, those are 16-inch tires, you're okay. And she was relieved. But then she said, I bet this is happening everywhere. So what we did, the very next day, we printed up little cards and laminated them. I don't know if you guys know what laminating is. We don't laminate many things anymore. And we said, these are the recalled tires. Here's the number. Here's the non-recalled tires. If you have the recalled tires, you can call this number. We'll make sure you get some new ones. Otherwise, you're okay. We printed out millions of these cards and gave them to every one of our employees around the globe. We gave them like 5 cards each and said, carry these with you. If somebody comes up to you and say, hey, you work at Ford, hand them the card. Check the vehicle out for them. So we took, a lot of times we take our employees for granted. We use them as ambassadors for our company worldwide. Right there. Right you.
How did Firestone survive? Because they killed so many people, but you guys just
it's a great. I didn't think they would, and a lot of experts said. One marketing expert called in the print called them dead brand walking, and I didn't think. Well, they're a global company. They're based in Japan. Bridgestone bought Firestone. Interestingly enough, after Firestone's first problem with tread separation back in 1978, and by the way, they acted the same way they were doing this time. But they're a big corporation. I think the Bridgestone name helped them because Bridgestone tires are considered primo, okay? It goes to that thing, American people forgive. And American people have the thought process span of about 4 seconds. So they forget about it. We move on, our lives are so busy. We got a text.
If Volkswagen came to you, what would you tell them to do?
It would be simple because they wouldn't come to me. I've had probably 15 or 20 journalists say, has Volkswagen called you yet? A supplier to Volkswagen called me and I advised them. But tell it like it is. Fess up, baby. See, they're in a bind because this is willful deceit. It's different than a defective product that maybe was lost down the chain. It was a little engineer here. He's two years into his job. He discovered it. He never got up all the way to the top. And by the way, that's what GM is claiming. But here you got a systematic thing where they said, we are going to cheat. It will save us money. We can say we met this emission standard when we don't have to do it. See, I don't know if you know much detail. It's really intriguing. They have a system that they put on the car, in the emission system, that it knows when it's on a test cycle. Like at an emission stage, it knows, oh, I'm on an emission station. I'm going to be really clean just right now. And then when the emission test is done, they go back to being dirty. That's it's awesome in some respect, but it's so criminal. It's unbelievable. I think there's a 50-50 chance that they'll be thrown out of the U.S. market. Thrown out for a number of years. And by the way, their dealers are mad at them too. So they got dealers with tens, hundreds of cars on their lot that they can't sell because Volkswagen doesn't have a fix. Now, they had the genius to figure out how to cheat, but they don't have the genius to figure out how not to cheat. This is why this is just a cluster. Right here. Wait 1 second. Coming on your backside.
What would you say the biggest? What would you say?
Nope, defective. Here you go.
What would you say the biggest or most interesting lie you've ever come across was, and why?
There's a dirty joke in there, but oh gosh, I got to tell you, and I'm not saying this just because it's in my book, but it's in my book. The tale of Anthony Weiner is the greatest story about lying that I've ever heard. He first says somebody hacked into his system. And then he admits he put some pictures out there, and they have one of his crotch, but he says he wasn't sure it was his. Now, my wife accused me of being dust blind, dirt blind. That I can't you see the dust on the dresser? And I'm in the kitchen looking at, honey, where's the mayonnaise? And she'll come in and go, it's right here. Can't you see anything? But if you put my Tom Johnson in a police lineup, I can tell it like the back of my hand. So, I mean, this guy was just unbelievable. Right here, in the blue.
What scandal, in your opinion, had the largest impact on corporate America?
That's a great question. I think the biggest scandal was the Tylenol scandal, and because it changed behaviors. It changed the way his company reacted. Tylenol gets being a PR guy, gets way too much credit for doing the right thing. Because who was going to blame Tylenol? It was some crazy guy that did this to Tylenol's products. It wasn't Tylenol that did this. However, it changed the industry. And so you had the safety caps and more taint-free and so forth. So it made everybody think about how you handle a crisis. Now, where I say they get too much credit, I compare it to the auto industry. How hard was it for them to send a note out to all retailers saying, if you have Tylenol on your shelves, get a box, scoop them in the box, and send them back to us with your address, and we'll reimburse you. You could do that in a day. Seriously, you could do that in an hour. But when it comes to automobiles, it's a lot different. Unfortunately, a lot of people still don't bring their cars in for when they get a recall. Because, I got to go to work, I got to pick up the kids, I don't have time to go to the dealership. We had a young lady, 25 years old in Detroit. The Jeep Liberty was susceptible to burning when it was rear-ended because of the location of the gas tank and the axle. This is just recently. And NHTSA made Chrysler recall it, and they were going to put a trailer hitch on. It actually was a fix. A trailer hitch would give them a little more room not to crush into the gas tank. And big notice sent out to all people that had the vehicle. Well, this young lady just ignored it. And 6 months later, somebody rear-ended her in Detroit, and she burned to death. So it's a lot harder in those situations when you have these things that you have to have and use in your work and your life in a daily use. Guy right there, that's the fourth row down. Get you. I would say the handsome man, but I wouldn't want to give you a big head.
Let's say that you are prepared for some sort of a crisis and you have the guiding principles and everything like that, but let's say an unforeseen crisis happens. What's the first thing that you should do as a company to kind of, get control of that situation?
Well, the first thing you do is you don't open your mouth right away. You gather the facts. Know what's going on. Know how broad the crisis is. Know what is impacted. Who's impacted. And you get your team together and say, oh, all right, we already know we have guiding principles. Now, what's our course of action? And, of course, number one has to be our customer. Let's remember that, everybody. And then if you have some guy go, hey, this is going to cost a lot of money. I don't think we should do this. You shoot that guy in the head. Okay? Green. We have like 2 books left or 1?
What's your most rewarding?
5 minutes. Sorry, can you start over?
What's your most rewarding accomplishment throughout your career?
Wow. My most rewarding accomplishment was Hurricane Katrina. When it hit, I put a team together, and we talked to Haley Barbour in Mississippi, and we talked to the Louisiana governor, and we talked to the Alabama governor, and we said, what do you need? And they said, we need vehicles for our first responders, primarily trucks. And so on a dime, within, I'd say, 48 hours, we arranged a caravan of 115 Dodge Rams from our St. Louis plant. And our team drove them down and we had a couple Sprinter vans too, filled with water. And it was incredible. It was incredible. And we got them into the hands of the people that could help the people. And it didn't take us a week to do that. It didn't take us 7 days. It took us about less than 48 hours. And we were down in Louisiana and Alabama. And so I got to use the power of the purse to help people that really needed it. Red. Maroon.
If you've ever had a crisis that may be foreseen or unforeseen, and you say this, and you go to the top executives or whoever it is and say, this is how we should handle it, this is the best way, and they went the complete opposite, like completely off the rails, and everything went downhill really quick, I'd imagine you'd be pretty mad. But how would you handle that? What would be the next steps after that?
Well, if they were doing something unethical or immoral, I would just stand and lay on the tracks. And if they ran me over, fine. But I have not run into that situation. The only thing close was in the waning days of my time at Chrysler when we had the new CEO there who was just a despicable human being. And I'd finally had enough of him and his attempts to make us lie. And I said, I don't lie, pal. And I was in his office on a Friday afternoon, and I had in my resignation letter. And he was so tone deaf. He goes, oh, you're going to go work for Romney? I go, no, I just don't like you. And I got home and told my wife, and she started screaming at me because I had $1.8 million in retention bonuses that I left behind. And when the media found out about the retention bonuses that eventually didn't get paid because Chrysler was going in the tank, and it was exposed in the media, the journalists that got the inside story on it showed me the chart that had all the executives on it and said, is that your number there? I go, yeah. He goes, holy cow, you crazy? I go, nope, not crazy. I just don't, I got to look myself in the mirror in the morning. It's not pleasant, but I look myself in the mirror in the morning.
Okay, we're out of books and we're out of time. And so on behalf of the Hale U.S. Bank College of Business, you have to figure out how to get this home, okay?
Excellent.
Okay, and this is for you.
Excellent, thank you. Hey, thanks for the questions.
So much.